This video will show you all you need to know about how to assemble your new Parma Arena Groomer. The Arena Groomer used in this video is an 8-foot model. However, the concepts will apply to any of the Parma Arena Groomers, from the 5-foot wide to the 12-foot wide. This video should be used in conjunction with your owner's manual. Your owner's manual contains a part list, mechanical drawings, as well as important safety and operating information. Be sure to thoroughly read and understand your owner's manual before attempting to assemble or operate your Arena Groomer. The bolts shown in this tutorial are tightened with nuts and lock washers. Parma Company has recently upgraded all of their Arena Groomer models to use steel lock nuts, which don't require lock washers. We have identified 16 steps to assemble this Arena Groomer. Although each step is necessary overall, the steps are general guidelines. You will need just a few tools such as a socket set, hammer, center punch, tin snips, and an Allen wrench. The tine point bolts are 9/16. All of the rest of the bolts are 3/4 inch. The bearing collars require a 5/32 Allen wrench. Okay, here's how to assemble your Parma Arena Groomer. The equipment comes unassembled on a pallet. A forklift makes easy work of handling, but a liftgate truck can be deployed for delivery if a forklift is not available. The first thing to do is remove the banding and unpack the pallet. Don't underestimate the power of organization. Assembly will be much smoother if all of the parts are clearly available. Empty the bags, sort all the parts, bolts, and pieces. This will take several minutes, but it is worth the time as there are over 350 parts in a typical Parma Arena Groomer. The side rails, leveling bar arms, and bearing brackets are bolted together for transport. This pack will need to be unassembled. A complete list of parts is available in your owner's manual. Once everything is sorted, start by attaching the chisel points to the S-tines. Use the 3/8 by 1 1/4 elliptical head bolts, 1 per tine. Assure the bolt head is seated in the slot of the chisel point. These points eventually wear out and must be reversed or replaced as they wear to prevent damage to the S-tine. Set up 4 supports. These are needed to assemble the Arena Groomer. If your tractor is available, you can substitute the front 2 supports by attaching the front hitch bar of the Arena Groomer to the tractor hitch. Set the front hitch bar onto 2 of the stands. This is the front of your groomer, and consideration should be made on how to move the groomer once it is fully assembled. Next, attach the side rails. There is a left-hand and a right-hand side rail. The Parma Arena Groomer logo faces outward. Use 1/2 by 1 1/4 bolts with lock washers. Do not tighten any of the bolts at this time. Leave the bolts finger tight. We will tighten up all the frame bolts once the Arena Groomer is fully assembled. Next, attach the tine bars. These are the bars that will support the tines. Use 1/2 by 1 1/4 bolts with lock washers and leave finger tight. This 8-foot model has 3 tine bars, others have 2. Now lay out the tine clamps. We use the center support angle here as a guide and adjust the tine clamps accordingly to leave room for the center support angle. The hole in the clamp should be in front of the tine bar. Moving from the front to the back tine bar, space the first tine clamps at 5 inches, 9 inches, and 13 inches on center from the side rail. 5 inches, 9 inches, 13 inches. From there, space the rest at 12 inches on center and stop at the center support angle. There is a drawing of the layout in your owner's manual. On the 3-bar model, like the one shown here, the front bar takes 8 tines, the middle bar takes 7 tines, and the third bar takes 6 tines. The 2-bar models are different. Again, refer to your owner's manual for details. Attach the S-tines to the tine clamps. The tine is installed as shown here. Use the 1/2 by 3 1/2 inch bolts with lock washers. Readjust the spacing of the tines to assure the correct spacing as detailed in your owner's manual. Tighten up the tine bolts before moving to the next step. Leave all other bolts finger tight until later. Just tighten the tine clamp bolts. Next, attach the rear bar. Use 1/2 by 1 1/4 bolts with lock washers. Be sure the center support angle clip in the middle of the rear bar is facing to the front and is on the top. The two tabs facing to the rear are for the leveling bar adjuster. Attach the center support angle using 1/2 by 1 1/4 inch bolts on the front and rear, and 1/2 by 3 1/2 inch bolts plus the clamp plates to secure to each tine bar. Leave the bolts finger tight. Attach the two pipe braces to the front hitch and rear corners. Use the 1/2 by 1 1/4 inch bolts plus lock washers. Also use the largest of the washers next to the bolt head for this step. Mount the two side bars to the leveling bar using 1/2 by 1 1/4 inch bolts plus lock washers. Position the leveling bar under the Parma Arena Groomer. Now attach the side bars to the side rails with 1/2 by 1 1/4 inch bolts. Use the nylon lock nuts provided. This joint has to rotate and the leveling bar moves up and down. The bolts on the leveling bar need to be tightened at this time to assure the bar is actually level. You need to be on level ground for this to work best. Lay the leveling bar on the ground as flat as possible. Tighten up the bolts and the leveling bar will be level. Next, attach the adjusting lever to the leveling bar using 1/2 by 1 1/4 inch bolts and a nylon lock nut. Then, pull the adjusting lever up to the middle hole and attach it to the rear bar using the hitch pin provided. First, get the parts organized in the work area. You will need the roller, the bearing brackets, of which there is a left-hand and a right-hand version. The tab on the top of the bracket will face to the rear. You will need the pillow block bearings, including the bearing collars. The first step to installing the roller is to buff the roller shaft to remove any rust accumulated during shipping. This is done to allow the bearing to slide over the shaft. Use a strip of light grit sandpaper, such as 120 grit. Evenly sand the shaft, removing all rust until the bearing is able to slide over the shaft. The bearings are installed with the bearing collar facing out. Once the bearing is on the shaft, attach the bearing brackets to the bearing. Use the 1/2 by 2 inch bolts. Make sure to use a washer on the bolt head to protect the cast iron pillow block from damage. Tighten these bolts. Now, attach the assembly to the side rails. Each bearing bracket is attached to the side rails with 1/2 by 1 1/4 inch bolts and lock washers. Install the brackets so that the top hole of the bearing bracket shows above the side rail. Now you are ready to tighten all of the bolts. Start from one side of the Parma Arena Groomer and move around the unit, assuring all bolts are tight. Again, the sides of the leveling bar must rotate, so when tightening this bolt, assure the joint still rotates. Do not tighten all the way. When tightening the clamp plates on the center support angle, you must tighten the bolts evenly so the clamp plate sits flush on the bottom of the tine bar. The pipe braces may need some extra effort to assure the parts are seated and the bolts are securely tightened. Once the bolts are tightened, the Parma Arena Groomer will be square. Now we can attach the bearing lock collars and secure the roller assembly to the Arena Groomer. To do this, you will need a hammer, a center punch, and an Allen wrench. First, center the roller in the bearing brackets. Assure the sides of the roller are evenly spaced and not touching the bearing brackets. The roller should spin freely. Next, notice the bearing race is asymmetrical. One side is bigger than the other. When you install the bearing collar, it will fit down over the race. Turn the collar forward in the direction the roller will be spinning when in use. This action will lock the bearing collar onto the bearing race and the roller shaft. Now, use the center punch to lock the bearing collar into place. There are two holes in the collar. One holds an Allen screw, the other is used to tighten the collar. Hold the roller from spinning and use the punch to set the collar as shown. Once the collar is set, tighten up the Allen set screw. The proper way to do this is to tighten the screw, back it off, then tighten it again. This will pit the shaft and completely secure the set screw. The final step is to attach the hitch pins. There are bushings provided for the lower hitch pins. Use them if necessary. Now you are finished with the assembly of your Parma Arena Groomer. Achieving the proper grooming tine depth is fairly easy. The Arena Groomer will need to be level from front to back and from side to side. Use the top link of the tractor to adjust the front to back level, and the tractor adjustments on the bottom links to adjust the side to side level. Refer to your tractor manual for more information. Set the initial level of the tines and drag a few feet. Measure the depth to determine whether it should be more or less. Then adjust the top link of your 3-point hitch. When adjusting the depth, check under the points to ensure that you are not getting into your base. Allow for at least 1 finger's distance between the point and the base to prevent damage to the base. Once the tine depth is adjusted, lower the leveling bar until it touches the ground. Push it down until the adjuster lever lines up and you can secure it with the locking pin. Now you are ready to drag. The Parma Arena Groomer is a multi-purpose arena groomer that is the top choice of facility managers and private arena owners everywhere. There are sizes ranging from 5 feet wide up to 12 feet wide. For more information and to view the entire line of Parma Arena Groomers, visit PremierEquestrian.com or call us at 800-611-6109. Thank you.